And often people in service, in medicine, in therapy, in healing, have been through such adversity and challenges in their own life. I think as a therapist going through my own, there was a lot of shame built into that. Like, how could I be sitting with this still? I'm a therapist. I should know better. But actually, what I
Mm.
take from it now is 20 years of real adversity and challenges were what I signed up to do. So
That's right.
spiritually, energetically, I incarnated into the family I incarnated into to learn what I
Well,
needed to learn. And you either
yeah.
say, what's it doing for me, or what's this doing to me?
Hey there, welcome to the Recharge Biomedical Podcast. I'm Dr. Edward Park, and if you're curious about regenerative medicine, you've come to the right place. We're diving into the latest breakthroughs in telomerase activation, stem cell exosomes, and all the cutting-edge science that's shaping the future of healing and longevity. Let's get started.
Hi, welcome to the Recharge Biomedical Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Edward Park, and today we're very fortunate to be joined by Lorena Gold, who's a clinical psychedelic-assisted therapist. Hi, Lorena.
Hello. Hi, Ed. Nice to see you.
So we met by happenstance, and it was great. And now we're talking about the theme of psychedelics. So tell us about your background and how you got involved with this.
Okay. So I'm a clinical psychotherapist, and I worked in lots of different modalities of therapy with homeless people, refugees, non-profit, low cost, and then I went into private practice. And I also worked like with art therapy and healing and different modalities of therapy. So I'm a transpersonal integrative therapist. Um, and after many years in private practice, I became quite disillusioned with my profession because putting myself through my own therapeutic process, I thought, well, I haven't healed. I haven't healed my core wounds. So this is bullshit. It doesn't work. And I was searching for something. And I'm like, well, okay, well, I've done all of this training and studying and years, and I love what I do, but there's something missing for me. It's scratching at the surface. It's not getting to the root cause. And I'd start speaking to people that weren't my patients or clients, and how long have you been in therapy for? And they'd be like, yeah, I've been seeing my therapist for 10 years or 8 years. And I'm like, well, then it's not working, is it? Well, you need to change therapists, because whoever's holding you in a space for that amount of time and you're not healed doesn't work. So I was searching, and I'm like, I don't think I like what I do anymore. But I met another psychotherapist and randomly had this dinner with him. And we got into a conversation, and he's like, what do you do? And he's like, I do that too. And I said, I'm burnt out. I'm not enjoying what I'm doing. It doesn't work. And he says, you need to come and work with me and see what I'm doing. And I said, what are you doing? And he said, I'm working with psychedelics for healing and psychedelic assisted therapy. Come and do a journey with me. And I said, no, I don't do drugs. And he laughed and he said, I said the same thing. He said, I also haven't done recreational drugs. This isn't drugs, it's medicine. And I was terrified. I thought I was going to die if I did something like this. And having not done recreational drugs growing up, I was busy having babies in my early 20s. So I kind of missed the chunk of that part of my life. And I went to a 10-person journey that he was facilitating with other facilitators. And I was also a participant, terrified. And what I experienced the next day was something I have never seen before. So there was a woman that had come to the journey, and she was sitting with deep rooted trauma from sexual abuse when she was at college, and she was in her 50s now. And we did integration the next day. I didn't know anything about her. And an integration, she stood up and she went, 30 years of therapy haven't touched the sides of where I went last night. And she said, I'm healed. I took back my power. I saw everything that had happened, and I'm whole. I'm good. And I went, I need to know what's happened to her. I need to know what her story is, because I've been searching for something. This could be it. So I organized a lunch with her. I sat down and spoke to her, and she had some horrendous sexual abuse at university and had spent 30 years in therapy trying to heal it. And she had been through addiction and trauma and different rehabs. And she had a very supportive husband, 3 beautiful children, and he had been there for the whole ride. And she couldn't get to that core piece. And what the medicine did was allowed her to get underneath the wounding and really see what had happened, and to take back that she'd given all of her power away to her abuser. And in that moment took it back. And I'm like, this is where I need to be. This is why I got into this work. And I'm like, if you can really heal the core wounding instead of treating the symptoms, which doesn't do anything. So then I spoke to my other therapist friends, and I'm like, psychotherapy's bullshit. And they're like, it's not. Let's unpack it.
Well, let's talk about that, because I'm not a psychotherapist, but if I want to learn how to play golf, there's an inherent conflict of interest, because the more quickly I learn golf, the sooner I don't pay my golf instructor. So on some level, I feel like, psychotherapy is somewhat enabling, because if they could wave a wand and say, oh, this is how you're going to take your power back, and how you're going to be having a catharsis and transcend, alchemize, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever the lead was, it's a gold. See it as a gift, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
How am I going to pay my bills if my 50-minute is only a one-off, right? So I need to string them along. And I remember I had a good friend who said she had narcissistic personality disorder, which is a very commonly overused term. I mean, we're all very internally preoccupied. And she said it was because of her borderline mom, who was narcissistic also, and yada, yada. Yeah. She'd had 30 years of therapy. And one day her therapist said to her, oh, you're cured. It was very arbitrary. I mean, so the question is an inherent one of malingering and transference and countertransference on both parties, because they're in an enabling relationship. They both get money and support and meaning out of continuing the therapeutic relationship. So that's why, it's very obviously you come from a deeply altruistic place, working with homeless and dispossessed people, refugees. But if the greatest calling is to wave a wand of ketamine or psilocybin and purge that, either through Reiki or insight or whatever, I mean, is that something people would really choose? I don't know. I think there's an inherent conflict of interest from people who get paid to give therapy.
So
I know that's a little aggressive, but what do you think? I mean,
I agree with you. I was speaking at a conference a couple of weeks ago, and the other guy on the stage said, this work is a calling. Most of us do it and we don't get paid for it. We get paid very little. Mm. And I said, if you see my bank account, you'll know it's a calling. So that was my response to that. It's definitely a calling to do this work. And yes, therapy, therapists can charge a lot of money and make a lot of money. They're not doing anything wrong. I think there's a place for everything. And psychedelics are not going to heal you. Nothing's going to heal you.
No.
Anything you choose to do is just assigning you a brief and the homework. And then what you do with it after is what's important. But you need the right people to hold you, to educate you how to do that work. So the thing with therapy for me, talk therapy, was I'd go in. Finally, after 5 years, I was brave enough to talk about my own trauma, which I was still rooted in deep shame. Like, how can I speak about this? And I did, and I felt like I'd unpacked it, been left on the floor, and it was like, okay, we'll see you next week. And I'm like, what do I do with it now? Nothing made any sense to me.
But I was talking to this woman last night. She was a patient who was sexually abused multiple times and wouldn't even unpack the more dark stuff. I'm like, what could be worse than this? And she's like, I dropped out of Berkeley and I didn't see the point. I'm like, at some level, everything is self-taught. My point is everyone is an autodidact. So I went to the Conscious Life Festival where you were a speaker a month ago. Yeah. I went to listen to this guy talk about his psychedelic experiences.
Yeah.
And his point was like, you can go through a trip and have the epiphany, the whole transformative experience. But if you don't do the take home assignment and you don't really integrate it, then it's just another trip and you move on to the next trip. So I guess
And
I wrote in my book.
that becomes addictive as well.
Yeah. It's the next trip, So I wrote in this book for Hay House, Telomere Miracle, as
Nice.
a beginner, because I'm not a psycho. I actually created a model based on computer analogies about the mind. And so it seems to me as I'm a person, and that people have these demons. Like, so in computer language, a demon is a little subroutine program. So people invite these programs in. Some people call it shadow work or whatever. You could call it trauma. So whatever it is that you wanted to be incarnated to experience, or by accident or victimization you experienced, people integrate that and it becomes like a shadow side of themselves. It becomes so egocentric, even though it's causing us a lot of disturbing emotions. The idea that I'm a victim, I'm a survivor of A, B, and C, mom, sexual abuse, whatever, capitalism. It becomes so much a part of their identity that they lose their agency. And so I wanted to shift gears. And this conference is people who are worth 8, 7, 8, 9 figures. And I remember a few months back listening to this founder of a company that was listed on NASDAQ. So he became very wealthy. And he co-opted this term from Buddhism, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. So he said, after NASDAQ listing, chop wood, carry water. Because in a very real sense, this entire MO, life's mission and enlightenment was to become extremely wealthy, which is fine. But, then to hear yesterday, Travis Kalanick or whatever, the founder of Uber, talk as though he were Gautama on the mountain addressing 450 apostles and saying, money doesn't make you happy. I'm like, bro, that's so funny. And just, they don't see the water that they're swimming in, these fish. They're just like, our entire life, spiritualism was equated with being wealthy. And so it's so funny. And I think it's totally adequate substitution. Like if we live in a material world, as Madonna said, then, we're material girls. But
Right.
I think that, when they say all beings be happy and free, that's really at the core of it, isn't it? Like some people define success as you do in service,
Yeah.
right? So you're helping to transform. But
Yeah.
I think that as I had an astrological reading, they said, well, this is Chiron, the wounded healer.
Yeah.
That's really what calls us to service, is that
Yeah.
in some way we're trying to heal ourselves.
Right.
That's what makes us so very empathic. But you're right. I think the work always has to be done by the person. So in alchemy, they used to call it the great work,
Right.
meaning taking all the stuff that you think is crap about your life and how you were raised and your circumstance and seeing it as a gift, which I thought was amazing. There was a guy who was literally very wealthy.
Yeah.
His house burned down in Palisades, and he was diagnosed with multiple myeloma. And he kept on saying, like a mantra, what's the gift? Because all these Tony Robbins self-help people. But quite literally, he used an AI to diagnose his multiple myeloma. Actually, the ER doctor did it. But there was a gift. And now he's got a whole nother platform and a mission to serve.
Right.
But I think that's the point that people over tequila, these science fiction writers, were talking about agency. And the one guy could clearly see his politics. The other one had opposite politics. But I think you're right. When people wallow in their own trauma, then what's the escape route?
Right. And when you talk about victim, the only way we can come out of victim is to, as you say, to look at the gift of what we've been through. If we choose to do this work as healers, we have to go through our own process to really be able to embody and be truly empathic to our audience. Otherwise, we're just learning. We can't learn this stuff in textbooks. So we have to have experienced it. And often people in service, in medicine, in therapy, in healing, have been through such adversity and challenges in their own life. And I think as a therapist going through my own, there was a lot of shame built into that. Like, how could I be sitting with this still? I'm a therapist. I should know better. But actually what I take from it now is 20 years of real adversity and challenges were what I signed up to do. So
that's right.
Spiritually, energetically, I incarnated into the family I incarnated into to learn what I wanted to learn. And you either say, what's it doing for me, or what's this doing to me? And
that's
when you're
it's a very subtle shift.
Yeah.
It's a subtle shift. But I'll never forget one of my dear friends who passed. she believed in past lives, and I didn't until last year. I was telling you about my friend who is the ophthalmologist, the very
Hmm.
wealthy, good-looking guy. Anyway, he told me about three of his past lives, and I was like, "Wow, you really believe this stuff, right?" Well, my friend who was my karaoke buddy, she really believed in it, and it was so vivid to her, and she lived in those pasts. And then I don't believe in spiritualism. I don't really do drugs. And I had an experience with a shaman like 13 years ago, and it was like phenomenological, like without talking, without saying, "Tell me about your childhood." Like she was moving energy, whatever that is, Reiki or whatever.
Yeah.
And my brain automatically rebooted some kind of disk defragmentation thing. So I was lying there in the hotel bed. My body started buzzing with electricity. I mean, it's totally not the power of suggestion because I had no expectation. And my mind raced back like Ebenezer Scrooge going through Christmas Carol to my childhood, watching my parents, seeing them for who they were, their efforts, their shortcomings. And it was like, years of childhood regression therapy in 30 minutes. And I was like,
Yeah.
wow, that's a thing. That's a program in your brain. That's another thing that can happen. But I remember thinking, why do you say that you incarnated to experience this? Like, and so now I don't even believe this crap, but sometimes I put that in people's face, like, oh, I wonder why you incarnated to experience this, right? So some people incarnate to experience the feeling of betrayal, or
Right.
some people incarnate to experience. But is that true? True-ish? Maybe, maybe not. But I remember I had one friend whose mentor had people from sexual assault go back and relive it in vivid detail. And just the banality of the evil and the sort of powerlessness of the person that raped them was so transformative in terms of the valence of their victim story, you know? So yeah, we do have, maybe it's a spiritual bypass, maybe it's a hack, maybe it's BS, but I do think it's important to move forward if you want to move forward. And a lot of people don't want to move forward. Their entire identity from birth to grave is their default mode network, right?
Right.
Their perception of who they are as a result of their experiences. So a lot of people are not here for the hero's journey. They're here for the wallowing. But I think that it's more pleasurable to get out of your brain. So let's talk about ego death, because that's something you kind of allude to. So obviously, ego death is horribly frightening, and why people don't want to see their brain on drugs frying in a pan, and why people are scared. But in every culture, people have had pathways to this, whether it be through dreaming or bacchanalia or ritual. Even in ancient Greece, they had the Eleusinian mysteries where they would take ergot and trip out and do whatever, God knows whatever. But there's shamanism, or this ability to reset or merge with source and have that ego death, is both pleasurable. It's a part of the rite of passage of young men in the Amazon. What's your opinion whether therapy without the drugs can really cause ego death? It feels like it's feeding the ego.
Um. So, just think about that.
I guess
think
does
you can.
insight lead to transformation?
Yeah, I would say 100%
Okay.
it does, because the
has.
more
Okay.
more insightful you are, the more understanding, the more educated you can be about what you're sitting with. So then it's a choice. Transformation's a choice. When people are sitting in crippling pain, they have a choice. Do you want to get up and get out of it, or do you want to sit in the pain? And some people choose to
Mhm.
sit in the pain because they don't want to change. It's about changing the
Yeah.
neuroplasticity of the brain. And I think we're born hardwired. I always use this analogy with clients. It's like we have an iPhone, cost us a fortune. If we don't update the software in the iPhone doesn't work. And we're running with software that was kind of hardwired into us from young children and expecting it to still work, and it doesn't.
Yeah.
So we need to give ourselves a boost. I don't necessarily think we have to have an ego death to be transformed into something else or choose to do this work. But it is very, very powerful when you do have that. And when you, and so
Yeah.
my own experience of that was I had a completely different relationship to actually what the ego was, because we talk about ego a lot, and there's healthy ego, unhealthy ego, and it's really kind of stripping that down. I think when you have an ego death with the use of medicine, and just to answer your question, yes, I do think you can get there through meditation, through water flow therapy. I've had incredible experiences with that, and that's no medicine, in a Temascal ceremony. I think energetically, whoever's holding that space, everything is about set and setting and safety, which is why whatever medicine you're going to do, go to someone experienced that really knows how to hold that space. And as you said, the integration after is everything, not the actual trip. It's how you integrate it after. But an ego death for me was what was shown to me was it was just stripping back every single layer that isn't your soul. Because the soul is pure. The soul is unscathed. Is everything that layers it, that makes people who they are, and trauma and imprint. So if we can strip that back and give it a cleaning, we return back to that. And so the ego death for me was becoming spirit in the abyss. There was no body.
Wasn't it interesting?
We age because our telomeres shorten and our stem cells deplete. But what if we could support both? I've been taking TA65 for 17 years. It's the only supplement I trust to support better mood, better sleep, and exercise recovery. And at age 57, I don't have any gray hair and I don't need reading glasses. TA65 is available now. Go to rechargebiomedical.com/TA-65 and enter promo code RECHARGE10 to save 10% off.
Yeah, I think that's beautifully stated. And I think every time we go to sleep, we're there.
Right.
We're instantly there. We're not embodied in our identity as such.
Yeah.
But you and I have kids about the same age, born around 99, and they both happened upon. You joked about you wasted your youth, studying and having kids. But I think we both had kids that transformed when they did psilocybin in a safe and supportive environment.
Right.
And maybe ego death is a daunting term. Maybe the experience of just being one with true reality, as you say, like source consciousness.
Yeah.
I don't really even believe in all this crystal stuff. I went to Consciousness Festival, but it's an undeniable
I'm not sure I believe in that, Ed.
I'm backing into it because I'm a medical doctor, super skeptical, and yet I have the Pandora's box of being open-minded. So I'll listen to anything.
Yeah.
But unless I experience it, and I think we all have the experience of that epiphany, the frisson, right? You get goosebumps when someone says something that's so true, right? So it's like trying to explain to someone what a beautiful sunset over the Pacific Ocean looks like. Until you felt it, it means nothing.
Right.
So I think just having my son, your daughter, be outside their ego for 6 hours or whatever it was like, oh, okay, wow, there is another way. I don't have to be in my story.
Right.
So let's talk to people who've never done drugs. I mean, we were talking about a lovely lady who was in her 80s doing drugs. So the term drugs, even the modifier recreational, like you're doing this as a fun, hedonistic escape. You're a degenerate, right? So there's so much that the war on drugs and the sort of morality of it, which is an undeniable element. I mean, I don't think even marijuana is not benign totally. But I think that the idea that people who live from cradle to grave only in their ego story, they are now availing themselves over the last 6 years. The ketamine-associated psychotherapy at low dose is there. And not everyone can go to the Amazon or find sort of death doula or a shaman to help them. But if people are curious, I mean, obviously they can do a Google search, what's the difference between ayahuasca or psilocybin or ketamine. I'm not a big fan of ketamine, but I know it's been a great legal gateway. The first question a newbie would ask, well, is this legal? Okay. And is it safe? And how can I get started? So where would you start in terms of people's gateway to, psychedelic therapy? Obviously, they come to see you and you can do whatever is appropriate for them.
Yeah.
But if I'm a total newbie, I'm asking, is this legal? Is this safe? And where do I start?
Right. So, well, ketamine is legal, which is why it's being used. It's also I feel like it's being used and abused as well, because it's falling into a lot of the wrong hands. And also because it can be prescribed, medical doctors, surgeons, whatever, they can prescribe it, but they don't have a therapeutic background to hold that space. So there's a company in Costa Rica, this was my experience of it, that you sign up to do 12 sessions. It costs a fortune. I had a friend that did it because she wanted to heal some trauma. And they send a beautiful package of everything that you need for the trip. And there's a doctor online for the first session.
Oh my God. Telemedicine. Okay.
He's online for one session and helps you drop in. And I was there with her to help her. I wasn't the facilitator. I was a friend, but with experience, she said, could I come and sit with her? And after the first session, they just send you the packages in the mail and you do it yourself. So what happens is at the end of that session, at the end of the 12 sessions, you go, okay, well, I don't want to pay another $5,000-$10,000. I can get this on prescription, and enough people are you can get it anywhere. So I'll just do it myself. And what my experience has been with ketamine-assisted therapy is, and this isn't for everyone, but people are falling back into re-addiction because it's so easy to obtain and it's being used in the wrong way. So if you go to a clinic with really experienced people, and there's a beautiful clinic that I went to in Toluca Lake that's just open with experienced medical doctors, psychiatrists, therapists that are holding space. If you go somewhere like that to experience it, great. But there's a lot of misuse with ketamine-assisted therapy, and it's also not for everyone. The most important thing when you're searching for where to go is make sure whoever you're speaking to does a really thorough assessment. What are you coming in to do? What are the intentions around your work? What's your trauma? What's your experience level with recreational drugs in the past? Have you done medicine journeys? And really start to get into someone's psyche, because I've turned a lot of people away. I'm not in this for the money, although I'd like to make money. But it's so, I just think there's a lot of people working out of integrity. The main objective is keep people safe and direct them to the right course for them and the right path for them. So ketamine, and I'm not experienced with ketamine to talk about it, but it takes you out of the pain body. So for severe PTSD, the patient or client is not re-experiencing that pain to work through it. They're getting a helicopter view. And with the right facilitation, doing MDMA or a mushroom journey or the two combined together, if the journey is facilitated, you still won't re-experience your trauma because you'll be held through that. And it's teaching you how to get out of your own way.
Yeah, it's so important. Yeah, it's so important. Well, if people are really wanting to learn, they can watch Michael Pollan's How to Change Your Mind. Have you seen that?
Yes.
Quite good. Yeah. So to review some 6 classes, there's probably 20 classes of psychedelics. But, my friend who's a therapist and she's a clinical psychiatrist, she asked me, hey, what did you learn at the Conscious Life Festival?
Yeah.
Which you were a speaker at.
Yeah.
And I went to that lecture on psychedelic. And so apart from, I characterize it as such, I learned only 2 things over 3 days, which is be kind to yourself, right? Hold space for yourself, which is so hard because so much of our life is chasing, finding, abandoning ourselves.
Yeah.
And just breathe deeply. That's all I said. And there's 2 types of people. There's like hippie chick, Burning Man people, and maybe old guys that are still trying to make money off a shtick. And there's a lot of like middle-aged, like I use the word Karens, which apparently is racist and derogatory, but there are a lot of women who are just traumatized and they're trying to escape their trauma by examining their trauma. And I let out an involuntary laugh from my psychiatrist friend. But I don't always think that the pathway to getting out of your trauma is thinking more about your trauma. I mean, it seems self-evident and a little irreverent.
The trauma is what we're doing constantly is treating symptoms. And we have to get underneath the symptoms to know where does it come from. Because those are the behaviors. And what psychedelic assisted therapy allows you to do is strip the layers back and get out of the story and get into the raw truth. So using empathogens like heart openers, MDMA, and when that's used in a...
Empathogens. I know the term entheogen. I never heard of empathogen. That's great.
So I call it empathogens because it's a way to get you... when people do this work, they want a connection to God, spirit, their higher self, whatever that is for you.
Sure.
I look at it as this is where all the noise resides and all the stories and the attachment to stories.
Right.
So our higher self, something higher is coming out here. So we get out of this place and taking something like MDMA that's very heart-centered We then it
Mm.
allows us to talk from our heart and get out of story because we're attached to our story, and the medicine allows you to get underneath that, to get to the raw
Isn't that
truth of
interesting?
starting to see. So once the heart is wide open, if you
Mm.
layer that experience with mushrooms are master teachers. They bring the
Mm.
wisdom. We don't have to do anything. We
Mm.
have to learn. Once we learn how to connect to the wisdom of the master teacher, it guides us. It just guides us.
I think so. And that was the experience with the shaman. I had no confirmation bias, no prejudice, no suggestion. Not a
Yeah.
word was said other than just breathe. And
Yeah.
it was like an automatic program in the operating system to go back and look at your childhood and reframe it. And
Yeah.
for the first time in my life, when I looked in the mirror, I didn't have this negative kind of crazy overlay about what I was seeing. And so I think that there are pathways for it. I think that not everyone can find a good healer or shaman.
Right.
But I do think that eventually, even if you do the trip, you find the genius, you find the healer, eventually people are going to have to find their way back to loving themselves. Like that's really the final integration because that
Right.
is the gateway drug to all the other things of feeling good. But, unfortunately, that shadow side of living in the victim consciousness of the scarcity mentality, that is to protect you. And it serves a very benevolent role, even though it causes us suffering. But what do I know? I'm just a guy living in this life. So,
What do
if
any of
people
us
want
know?
to learn,
We make it up. We
well, that's the
make
thing.
it up day by day, but
But it's a rhetorical question. But actually, I think Satori enlightenment is available to all of us all the time. And that, consciousness not only is a filter and a gatekeeper, but it's also a barrier to enlightenment. Like, if we're really
Right.
being honest, we're firing on all chakras. We're taking in source. We're feeling the scarcity. We're feeling the love, the expression. All the chakras are always there. And, it's quite beautiful to be living in the present, but it's also overwhelming. So consciousness has many roles. It has
Right.
the role of protecting us, of helping us understand, but also of filtering out how amazingly perfect every moment is. Like people they can't be blissed out all the time,
Yeah.
So anyway, if you practice remotely, I know you still have your practice in London, in the UK, and you reside in Hollywood. So
I'm in
people
West
wanted to
Hollywood.
get in touch with you. Yeah, how would they do that, Loretta?
Through email or connection somehow. And I would
So it's
do
lorettagold.com. Is that the primary
it's
source?
Loretta at lorettagold.com.
All
Loretta
right.
at
And the website is
lorettagold.com.
lorettagold.com, correct?
Yes.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, I mean, so lovely. I love your, you have all the bona fides in the background, the acoustic guitar and the San Pedro. So it's been really good talking to you. I'm glad that you are
Can I-
helping
can I-
people in such a great way.
Can I
Yeah,
just
please.
with one thing? Because when we talk about kind of doing the journeys, what it allowed me to do was I couldn't get out of my head. I couldn't see beyond the talking. It showed me in frames. It showed me in imagery what I was in, why I was in it, and what I needed to do to heal. So it was incredibly
Interesting.
powerful. So just to circle back to how I started, there is a place for therapy. There's a place for everything. We have to have a vast toolbox. And in that
Yeah.
toolbox, we have different tools that suit different people. So it's a combination of lots of things. But when you're invested in your healing journey, there is so much help out there. This work is absolutely magic. I truly, truly believe in it with every fiber of my being because it healed some very deep trauma for myself. It saved, I would say, it saved my life and my daughter's. And I have facilitated hundreds of different people in groups, and this work never ceases to amaze me. It's truly profound, deep rooted, and it's beautiful. And if you want to heal, you can.
I love that. And it's such a hopeful message and a pragmatic message based on experience.
Yeah.
Then again, I would say, as the devil's advocate, because I am kind of like that, if you don't want to heal, you don't have to.
Exactly. But
I
then, you're,
think that
you're
there's-
coming back to do it all again. That's a choice.
But that's very, but there's like, reincarnation in the great cycle. But even with therapy or whatever, like if my dating life is a history of, recurring trauma, self-inflicted. So I think that there is that kind of funny dark side too. Like if your secondary gain, right? If the meaning of your very existence is to wallow in whatever dysfunctional pattern you claim is hurting you, is your secret motive, then you're not going to heal, which is also reassuring. But yeah, no, people don't love change, but it is available and it can open doors to greater and greater pleasure and happiness and joy.
Right.
So it's good to know that it's out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Loretta. It's so lovely to know you and to meet you. And I hope people do avail themselves of getting in touch with you.
Absolutely. They can email me, and thank
All
you.
right.
It was a pleasure to talk to you.
Likewise. Thank you. Okay.
Take
care.
care.
Have a great day.
Thanks for tuning into the Recharge Biomedical Podcast. If today's episode got you thinking, you'll love my book, Exosomes Songs of Healing. It's packed with cool analogies, full-color illustrations, and all the science you'll need to understand how exosomes are changing the game in aging and regenerative medicine. You can grab it in paperback, ebook, or audiobook, whatever works for you. Now head over to www.rechargebiomedical.com to check it out. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss another episode. See you next time.